faintly remember how 1970s, 80s and 90s looked for India in the global order. How West had decided to alienate, target and do what not to malign India's global image. But look at the reversal of time and the power of economic growth that today, when the world is threatened by tariffs, trust deficits and when they are looking for an anchor, they are looking towards India. Compared to a time when India had to remain on the edges of global order, be cautious there, this is a time where the world is rushing towards India, and this time it is not out of goodwill, it is out of necessity, which marks the time that India has arrived. But what are the reasons behind it? How this has changed over the years? What are the things that India is giving and what are the things that these nations need? Hello everyone, welcome to Vajiram and Ravi's Flash News. My name is Shubhangi Singh and in today's session, we will be trying to understand many dimensions around the fact that why countries are rushing towards India to sign their trade deals in this globally chaotic landscape. So let us begin with looking at that what has been the present time like, where India has not signed just 1, 2 or 3 trade deals, but rather many more in last 3 years. And this clearly marks a fact that there has been a strategic shift in India's alignment itself. We don't need to go into external factors first, we need to see what has changed internally to bring this culmination on as we see. So for this we need to understand that how India has gradually structured its trade diplomacy very differently. For that, let us go to India's earlier Indian trade. Let us go to India's earlier trade policy, where if you remember till up and until 1990s, I am talking about 1991 LPG, before that, primarily our foreign trade policy was very defensive. We were focused on keeping our markets protected. We wanted to export, but we had very limited goods to export. We did not want to open our economy. We wanted to keep the growth, but it was okay if it was slow moving. A specific term was used there, Hindu growth rate. Can you tell me in the comment section why this specific term was used? Now, at that time, our whole idea was to make sure that our economy is protected from the imports, it is not flooded by imports, so that the domestic products can thrive. But when we see as of now, flip the script, coming to 2026, we are seeing a very different face of Indian economy, where there is not only speed. For example, when we are talking about New Zealand deal, we saw that it was concluded merely 9 months. We get to see that trade policy has also scaled with it. If you talk about India-European Union FTA, you will see that it has been materialized over 20 years, that is more than 2 decades. But at the same time, it is addressing nearly 2 billion consumers, 25% of global GDP. And another important factor that marks India's significance here is selectivity. That India is not saying that if we want a trade deal, we are ready with whatever you say. We are the ones which are opening chosen sectors while protecting the sensitive sectors, be it agriculture, be it MSME. So when we are talking about these 2 phases itself, and when we are looking at the key features, you can clearly understand how starkly they differ. And this is what lays the ground plan of this shift that we have seen in terms of India's trade policy, and this has been the opening point for India. That we have moved away from trade skepticism and we have focused on calibrated trade integration. This is the opening act that India did. India brought in the change in the internal factors as well. And that is when we need to see that what are the other things that change that have resulted in such major deals being signed up with India where there is absolute trust deficit, absolute global chaos around the world. Now, when we are talking about this, another dimension that we need to talk about here is, if you look at the characteristics of just 3 deals I have picked up here. First, I have India-UK trade deal, then we have India-UAE FTA, and then we have also the smaller deals India has had, be it with the Oman, be it with UAE. In this context, you get to see, if we are talking about UK, there were certain conditions with UK. For example, there was loss of preferential European Union market access. They have lost that because of the Brexit. Then they needed something that was fast growing, that was large in terms of consumption, a market that was suitable for that, and that was India. And India did not only offer demand, it offered services and skilled labor mobility as well. What India needed? India wanted tariff cut, and India wanted a market access in terms of sectors such as textile, engineering, gems and jewelry. They wanted better access for skilled professionals, for Indian professionals, and they wanted somebody to come on their side to show to the bigger groups such as European Union, because that will help their negotiations. So we get to see both were in need, but at the same time you get to see that how there is an asymmetric need on one end but mutual benefit. You get to see that there is asymmetric need. That means there are not similar needs, there are different needs, but the deal that has been signed, that will result in mutual benefit. Now, when we are talking about the next deal, you look at India-EU FTA, mother of all deals, 2 billion people, 25% of GDP. In this context, this has been stalled for more than 2 decades. But why did the breakthrough happen now? It happened because Europe was not comfortable with China's absolute overcapacity and the dumping that was taking place. Europe did not understand that what US will do. There was immense unpredictability, and it also needed a diversified, consumption-based market as well as resilient supply chains to trade with. And India emerged as an option which was not just democratic, it was politically stable, it had the alternative demand, and it was an alternative to China as well. So again, an anchor here. And when we are talking about smaller deals, be it with Oman, be it with New Zealand, it shows the fact that when we are looking at bigger deals, the comparisons should not be in terms of the numbers. The comparison here should be of the fact that even in this context, it is India's mature interest-based trade negotiation that has taken place. We have not compromised. Even in New Zealand deal, agricultural interests have been kept at the prime. Even if when we are talking Oman deal, we have focused on our economic footprint, better access in terms of exports. So overall, what we are getting to see that across the different case studies that we have taken here, one huge common point here is that India remains an answer to the multiple needs that have been labeled across, and for this particular reason, India has emerged as a stakeholder in terms of change, in terms of stability, in terms of rule-based order, which probably might develop after the chaos we have seen. Now, another dimension that needs to be understood from here is why global leaders are courting India, and they are courting it by visiting India. That means they are personally coming to India, be it the leaders from Germany, UAE. If you remember, last month only we saw a brief visit of the president of UAE. We saw that the leaders from Brazil, from Canada, Germany visiting us. Because we get to see that these countries in unpredictable times are looking for trusted partners, reliable partners, non-interventionist partners. At the same time, they are also seeking strategic autonomy from US and also China rivalry, because they are intertwined in their own created wars. They don't want to be involved here. They want to be strategic, immune to this. They want to have their own hold on the side. How they can do? They can do it by having a partner outside of this. So India is a very suitable China plus one alternative. and they want an economy with both scale and stability. When we are talking about stability, it is not just about economic stability, it is also about political stability. And if you look at these pointers, you will find that India is a very suitable answer in all of this context, because India is perceived as a country which is with such high growing rate, which is big enough that it matters. You can label it in middle order. Then you see that they are independent enough to be trusted. That means they are not dependent. They have exercised their strategic autonomy, be it against US, be it against Russia, be it against China. So they are not tied with anybody, and they are stable enough for any long-term commitments to be made. So in this context, there are visible reasons that we get to see that global leaders are coming and quoting India, which means these countries are trying to quote India. And this is where we will be trying to understand the external factors. We have talked about internal factors, we have moved towards a different dimension understanding in terms of case studies, and now we will be moving towards external factors, that what exactly is going on in terms of global trade, that we are seeing the movement towards India. So in this context, the first thing you have to see, if we look at the two biggest economies in the world, US, it is unpredictable, not just in terms of business but also in terms of tariff policies. There is no stability which is present here. Tariffs can be used, sanctions can be used, and trade here is a weapon to get its demand fulfilled. When we are looking towards China, they are focusing on dumping and overproduction, and they are using state subsidies, which is not sustainable in the long term. And when you look into another factor, when we are talking about global supply chains, they have been strained for straight half a decade. Why? 2020 COVID-19, when the globe started to recover from that, we saw Russia-Ukraine war and multiple conflicts since then. So the global supply chains have remained vulnerable. Now, all of this shows that the global trade at this point of time, the need of the hour is some stability, is some predictability, and also reliability. And where it can rely, this is where middle powers come into the picture, because middle powers are the one which are looking to reliable scale, not just low cost production. And that is why middle powers want to associate with such powers where they know that this is not going to trouble them. Now moving to another dimension right here, which can be directly connected to that why India is seen, especially when we are talking about source of reliable scale. When we are talking about reliable scale, why India is source of that? So let us talk about some numbers here. First, when we are looking at India, we get to see that we are 1.4 billion strong domestic market, which will be focused on consumption. That means increased demand for long term. As of now, we are amongst the top 5 global economy. We have a democratic polity, we are stable ones, and political continuity has been assured. And over the especially last 2 years, we have shown that we are very much focused on our strategic interests. We will maintain our strategic autonomy. We might engage with you, but we will not align in a differential manner. So that is why India is big enough in terms of numbers to absorb shocks, because there will be business cycles as such. It is open enough to integrate, it is on the table, it is not closed of an economy, and it is independent so as to resist coercion. For example, if here Russia wants to coerce India into a certain direction, that will not be possible, because India has always maintained its stance of strategic autonomy, and that is why India has become a system stabilizing component and an economic partner in the region and also across the globe. And this shows that India's internal transformation has also taken place that we were talking about in the very start, where India has decided that yes, we will make in India, but we will be focused on selling it to the world. The market access is going to be ours. And this is where we are seeing a difference in approach, where earlier we were talking only about self-reliance through protection. Free trade was seen with associated risk, but now self-reliance, yes, we want that, but there will be integration. We want cheaper inputs so as to ensure competitive manufacturing. We are not going to decide that we keep it closed because it is like a risk. And export-led growth, which is being facilitated by schemes such as Make in India, PLI, Startup India, and many more. Now, on this note, I will be leaving you with a very important question, that what are the strategic implications of this situation and what are the challenges? I will give you example here. For example, we are going to get enhanced strategic autonomy. When we are talking with more partners, we have these in pocket. Furthermore, we have more rule shaping power in coming times, and we will be able to be a stronger global south leader, which we have propagated for long. But when we are talking about challenges, the competitiveness, the quality from MSMEs, that needs to be addressed. When we are talking about domestic industry, the adjustment costs are immense, that needs to be addressed. And also the implementation capacity which is present at the state level, that is also very important to be addressed. Now I want you to add more on these. You can put it down in the comment section. But when I am talking about challenges, you have to remember we have to focus making more from the gains and getting further gains, and from challenges we have to eliminate them. Why? Because if we want to actually get the benefits of this trade diplomacy that we have done over the years, then we need to improve on our infrastructure, we need to improve on our skills and also regulatory reforms. Now that was all from my side. Thank you so much.